So in this video I'm going to talk about which Sandy Bridge ThinkPad you should get. Which one would be right for you. Here I have an xx20, a T420, and a T520, and then also I don't own a T420S, but here is a T430S that I'm going to use as a stand-in. So really it comes down to a few things. So I'm going to go over them here, the advantages and disadvantages of all of them, and then which I personally prefer. And then I'll let you guys make your decision as to which one you want, given this information. So let's start with the X220. So this is the smallest and lightest out of the bunch. You get with an all magnesium case, lid and bottom case. It's all rubberized, feels very nice. And then you also get this. These devices use the type of hinge that has a nut on it, and so does the T520. These T420s and also the T420S use the type of hinge where it's sort of just a metal barrel inside of a tube, and it works with friction. So those types of hinges do not have adjustable tension, and they also are kind of garbage. They tend to get sloppy. This one's not terrible, has about this much slop in it. There are actually two different manufacturers for the hinges on the T420. One of them is better than the other. This one has the better hinges. I actually took them out of my old T420. It's funny because this machine here is in much better condition than my old T420 was. And the original hinges had clearly much less use on them, but they had significantly more slop than these do, just because they're so crappy. These ones are pretty old. They're sort of pitted, and the machine these came out of was beat. But so these machines, X220, I mean, there's no slop in the hinges on this device. T520, I own literally 6 of these devices. I have a T520, I have a W510, I have a W520, I have a W530, I have a T530, I have a T520. I own literally all of them, and not a single one I've ever had has had even the tiniest bit of slop in the hinges. I mean, it just doesn't happen. These, though, it does. So that is something to be aware of. Now, keyboards. I actually think out of all of these, the T420S would be the most pleasant to type on, because these have, I would say, the least amount of keyboard flex out of them. This is a T430, but notice, I mean, I can press on it. There's not really a whole lot of flex. You know, you look at my T520. There is definitely some, especially over here. T420 is the worst by far. I mean, these are just... it's not particularly great. This device, I would say, is second best in terms of the key feel. Third best would be the T520, and the worst is the T420. Now, obviously, it does come down to keyboard manufacturer. All three of these devices, or all of them, use the same keyboards. My X220 and my T420 have NMB keyboards, and my T520 has a chickeny keyboard. It's the original keyboard. It looked mint when I got it. You can just tell how much I've used this machine. This used to be my daily driver, but I like the chickeny and the NMBs. They're very nice. I feel I don't know. Maybe I like the chickeny the best, honestly. The NMB, it's firmer and a little more tactile, but just something about the chickeny I like. I feel like I can just type on it a little faster. But they're all good keyboards. So, build quality wise, I would say the X220 is a nice feeling device. It's very premium. You know, all metal, all rubberized. You know, there's not much chassis flex to it. It's a very rigid, solid machine. The hinge feels very nice and solid. The palm rest, there's a little flex to it, but not horrible. Also, something to mention is that the X220 and the T520, or at least most T520s, have palm rests that are manufactured by Mitsubishi, and as well as the display bezels, basically any of the ABS plastic parts. And then the 20 of these parts are made by, and also the T430, they're made by a different manufacturer. I forget who they are, but I can tell you from experience that the plastics on the T420 are extremely brittle compared to the plastics on this device and this device. I haven't yet seen a T520 with plastic parts made by the same manufacturer as the T420, but I have seen evidence before that it can happen. So that is something to keep in mind. I have not seen it ever on an X220. A very nice device. In terms of the hinge, I'm going to tell you right now, I've had many laptops before, and the T520 and the 15-inch CS09 devices, these have single-handedly the most solid hinges and display assembly of any device I have ever touched. Not even owned, just touched. I mean, it is actually crazy. I mean, they're just so darn solid, and I mean, you cannot fault them at all. The plastics on the palm rest on this T520, they feel very nice. T420, it's a lot smoother, I would say cheaper feeling. It's not quite as nice. This is a very nice, gritty, thick material. Same with my X220. So that is something to consider. Now, the big pitfall of these devices in terms of their premium feel, I would say, is, for one, the lid is made out of GFRP, so it's a little bit on the flexy side in terms of like the big part on top. It's also a large lid, so there's more room for it to, compress compared to an X220. It's a lot smaller. And then also, I would say the bottom of this device is simply gritty, hard GFRP. So it's durable. This will last, but if you're looking for a device that feels like, premium and expensive, this is not it. And I would say the T420 is a little better in that regard. This is CFRP lid, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. I know for a fact the bottom is CFRP, and it feels a little bit nicer than the bottom. It's a smoother texture compared to the T520. You'd see the difference. And it's more like a painted finish. It's quite nice. I like it, actually. T520, kind of cheap, to be honest. The T510 and W510 actually did use a CFRP bottom, just like the T420, and those feel a little more premium, I would say. Although I think the lids on those are actually more flexible than the ones in the T520 and T530. But overall, the standard T-series devices they're for the CS09 generation. They're tough, they're durable, these will last. But if you're looking for a device that has a premium feel to it, these are not it. They feel kind of hollow, plasticky. I mean, and that's just how they are. I mean, I love my T520, but if you're looking for a device that is nice and fancy and premium, these just don't do that. Now, the X220, as I said, is better about that. This is a nice feeling machine, and I think they're very nice. Now, if you do want a T-series device that has that premium feel to it, that is where the T420S would come in. So, oh, damn it. Man, this thing was just charged a second ago. So this device is very nice. CFRP lid here. So now that I say that out loud, I actually think this does not have a CFRP lid, because I know the T420S does, and I don't think that's something the T420 has. But, so CFRP lid on this, and here's the twist it. There is definitely more flex in the T420 lid, and that's funny considering it's also thicker. But, so, the hinges in this device are a little better, I would say, although it could just be because this machine I won the Hinge lottery on it, and it's also a device with not much usage on it, so the hinges are still tight. This actually has no slop in it at all. It's the only 14-inch pre-T440p ThinkPad I've ever owned that is like that. All my T60s have slop in them, all my T40s have slop in them. So, and my T23 did as well. This device, I would say out of all of them, this is the most high quality feeling out of them, and I would say the most sturdy and solid. It has the least keyboard flex. You get a nice CFRP lid. The bottom case, it's completely magnesium, no plastic here. You know, the sides magnesium. It's sort of like a semi-unibody design where it's like it's all sorts of sits in like a magnesium tub. But it's very rigid, it's very strong, it feels nice and solid. These are good devices, and I would totally recommend them. The palm rest on this device is a Mitsubishi made palm rest. So now there is a few caveats to this device. Comparing this device to the regular T420, personally, I would take that one over this one. However, functionally speaking, the T420 is the better device. This machine is a socketed processor, so if you get, say, a T420i, you can upgrade to an i5 or an i7, provided it's dual core. I know some people do like to put quad core processors in these. I have tried it myself, and I would not recommend it. They run very hot. The T520, however, does have the thermal capacity for a quad core processor. So if you want a quad core T-series device, that's the one you want, not this one. So that is an advantage to the T420. Another advantage, these devices can be had with the 9-cell battery. This one has a 6-cell, but T520, same type of battery, get the 9-cell that sticks out the back. These, you can only get it with a, I believe, 4-cell battery. So battery life-wise, these are not great, to be honest. These aren't particularly good either by modern standards, but they're a whole lot better than these. So it really just depends a lot on your use cases. If you're looking for a ThinkPad that feels premium and is nice and sturdy, I would go with this one or this one. If you're looking for a ThinkPad that is, you know, rugged, durable, functional, good battery life, but not necessarily feels premium like a MacBook or something, I would go with this one or this one. Frankly, I would go with this one. The T420, it's an alright device, but I don't really see much reason to go with it over this one because the T520 is just better in literally every single way. And I mean, you can get it with the same processors, the same batteries, so it's not like you're getting at a disadvantage in efficiency either going with the larger device. So the machine doesn't make so much sense to me, but it's there. Now, if I wanted a 14-inch ThinkPad, I would go with this one, not that one. Now, another thing to talk about here, displays. This T520 easily, these 15-inch machines, they easily have the best factory displays out of any of these. I mean, it's not even close. The TX220 you can get with an IPS panel, but it's still a low resolution, low contrast, low color gamut panel, so it doesn't look great. T420s and T420 and T420S, it's only available with TN panels. You can get 900p if you want. Optionally, this T420S or T430S has the 900p panel. This T420 has the 768p panel. They suck. They are horrible. These screens are genuinely some of the worst panels I've ever seen in any notebook computer, and I mean that. I think my T60 actually has a better display. You can upgrade these to 1080p IPS panels with 72% NTSC coverage if you get the aftermarket adapter, or converter I should say. I did actually have one installed in this device at one point, but I took it out and put it in my T430 instead since I kind of like that machine better. I believe you can also do that for these, but it's a little bit different in terms of how it's done. I haven't tried it on this before or even looked into it, so you'd have to look into that yourself. But I do know it can be done, and I think you can also install 1440p panels in these devices. I don't know if you can in these, but if you can in this, I assume you can here as well. These devices, if you're looking for a machine with a good display right out of the gate, this machine has the AUO B156HW01V4, and it is truly an amazing screen. It is TN, so your viewing angles not particularly amazing, although they are not at all bad for a TN panel. I mean, you can see it's not terrible. Look at the T420 by comparison. Yeah, it's not good. Same with this one. Woof. Yeah. But this machine has 95% coverage of the NTSC color gamut, and I believe it was actually originally rated in Adobe RGB. It's a 280 nit panel. I believe it's 400 to 1 contrast. These are, I think, 200 to 1. I think that is also 200 to 1. I want to say the IPS panel is 500 to 1, maybe 600 to 1. I don't remember. But the color gamut on the stock IPS panel is still only 45% NTSC, although actually it might be 50. But I know for a fact it's nowhere near 72 or 95. So this panel right here, this is the best panel you're going to be able to get in any of these devices without modifications. Now, even with the upgraded IPS panel, you're still not going to be able to get as good color gamut out of the IPS FHD displays available, as those are 72% NTSC versus 95% on this B156HW01V4. However, I would say that the differences in contrast, viewing angles, and brightness make up for the difference, and the slightly worse color accuracy, although it's up to you really to decide. If you're doing color accurate work where that sort of stuff is important, I would go with this device over any of these other ones. I wouldn't even consider them, because frankly the displays in all of these other devices are absolutely terrible. And this one is stuck with a horrible screen. You're never going to be able to put a good screen in this device unless you upgrade it to a 13-inch 16:10 panel, which is a lot of work. The IPS panels available in these are still garbage. These can be upgraded to have good displays without too much modification. I mean, really all you do is just install the adapter. This one can have a great screen without even having an adapter or anything like that. So I would say out of these devices, my favorites are the T520 and the T420S. So I'll explain my reasonings for this. I think if you're looking for a sturdy, high quality, thin and light ThinkPad, this is the best one out of them. So the X220 also does that, but at the same time, to me, it's sort of just this, but worse. The only really advantage you have with this device is the batteries, and that's about it. And then by the same logic, if you're looking for a durable, sturdy, functional ThinkPad, this is the best, and this is sort of just that, but not as good. So personally, I would disregard the T420 entirely, and I would just pick between the T520, X220, and T420S. But that's just my opinion. The T420 is still a good machine, and if the T520 didn't exist, I would be over here singing its praises. But the thing is, just I don't really see much reason to go with this machine when this one exists. So, in terms of, as I mentioned previously, in terms of cooling capacities, the T520 is the only one that is able to run a quad core without overheating, or just running excessively hot. I don't run a quad core in my T520 though, because I don't really need one. There you have it, really. These are all great devices. They're all amazing. I would totally recommend any of them, to be honest. The T420. But if you have the option between all of these, I would go with, personally, the T520. That's my favorite one. That's why I used it that's why it's the only one out of this stack I've ever used as a daily driver. But everybody has their own priorities, and if you're looking for something portable and sturdy and sort of like an Ultrabook, I would go with the T420S. X220 is a little bit smaller and a little bit lighter than the T420S, but not by much, to be honest. I would say, honestly, they feel like they weigh about the same. I want to say the T420S is technically about a half-pound heavier, but it's not a significant difference. And if you put a 9-cell battery in an X220 to take advantage of that increased battery life anyways, you're probably going to weigh about the same as a T430S. And I also believe I also believe the T420S is a little bit thinner than the X220 as well, though I don't really care much about that. Yeah, I think it's a little bit slimmer. Not by a whole lot though, but it is there. So in terms of repairability, ease of maintenance, stuff like that, I would say the T420S is the easiest out of the bunch, followed by the X220, then the T520, and then the T420. These are a little bit of a pain in the ass to work on in terms of the antenna routing, although it's also terrible on the T520. I actually, on all of my devices, I end up just deleting the antennas in the display lid for the WWAN because I'm never going to use it, and it makes reassembly a little bit easier. Yeah, that's all there really is to it. That's my personal take on the matter as to these devices. I hope that this video helped you and provided some more insight into your decision between these devices. And if it did, or if you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment. And thanks for watching.